Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear participants, distinguished speaker, I would like to welcome you all to today's public lecture on game-changing technologies. We will begin formally with the recitation of the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان. والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان. صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. Before moving on to the lecture, let me briefly introduce you to today's distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. Javed Laghari. Thank you, sir, for being here. He's former senator and chairperson of the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, and he was also the acting coordinator general of comstech. He was the founding president of a leading private university, Zabist, and over there he was a full tenured professor of electrical and computer engineering and director of Space Power Institute at SUNY Buffalo. Professor Laghari has also served as the commissioner at the Ministry of Education UAE, and currently he's the president of the Forum for Dialogue and Diplomacy, Houston, Texas. Dr. Laghari's research interest is in energy storage and pulsed power devices and their application to space and other futuristic technologies and systems. Dr. Laghari has a passion for writing and speaking, with over 600 presentations, publications, and interviews to his credit. During his tenure at SUNY Buffalo, he published over 120 research papers and presented over 74 papers at international conferences. He's also the author of an IEEE standard on radiation effects in space and has published 2 book chapters and a monograph. On behalf of Comstech, I would like to thank Professor Laghari for taking out this time to present on this very important topic. I would also like to thank Professor Dr. Muhammad Mukhtar, Vice Chancellor, National Skill University, for being present here today. Thank you so much, sir. So I would like to formally invite you, sir, to present your presentation.
Slides up until करेंगे. Yes, because I'll just be here and then when I say change, yeah, I just click this, right? Left button?
Yes, left.
Right one?
Yes.
On page?
Yes.
All of you. I'm actually very pleased, first of all, to be back here in comstech because I had a short stint as the acting coordinator when I was the chairperson of the Higher Education Commission in Islamabad. I'm also thankful to my good friends, actually, who are present here, especially Dr. Mukhtar, Vice Chancellor of the Skills University, Dr. Nasir here. They are not just have been my peers, contemporaries, but good friends as well. Thank you. And then in particularly, I would like to acknowledge Murtaza Noor. He and I actually have worked together through very difficult times at the Higher Education Commission. As you recall, we went through the 18th Amendment in which Higher Education Commission was stripped or supposedly stripped for most of its functions. And then we also went through the scenario of verifying degrees of basically the parliamentarians that actually put us into a lot of problems at that time. But thanks to our warriors like Dr. Mukhtar, Dr. Nasir here, Murtaza, Dr. Suhail Naqvi, so I would like to acknowledge all of them for standing behind the institution that actually has stood for Pakistan, which is the Higher Education Commission. Today's talk, of course, is when I was asked, there are so many possibilities that I could speak of because as you notice, I've worn many hats in my life. An academic hat, a professor's hat. I was a professor of electrical and computer engineering at the State University of New York in Buffalo before I returned back to Pakistan. I was there for 16 years, and my research area, as was pointed out earlier, was in energy storage systems for space power applications. But then I came to a completely different world, which was to establish Zabist in Karachi under Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto, who was the chancellor and the chairperson of the board. By the time I left Zabist, we had almost like 10,000 students, 4 campuses, including the first foreign campus of any Pakistani university, which was in Dubai. A small deviation came. I'm not a political person, so I was kind of nominated to be in the Senate. I served for 4 years as a senator, trying to bring in, supporting education basically and science and technology in the Senate and in Pakistan Parliament and different policy matters in the budgets. And then when I was appointed as the chairperson of the Higher Education Commission, then I resigned from the Senate after 4 years, took up that responsibility concurrently as coordinator general of comstech. At the end of the tenure, I moved to Abu Dhabi, which is not listed here. I was a commissioner of education, which was a job that is very similar to Higher Education Commission, but much more challenging. Even a small country like United Arab Emirates has 96 universities and more than 900 academic programs. And we were kind of supervising and regulating all those programs, from the Ministry of Education, which was under the Commission for Academic Accreditation. I returned back to the US, but instead of going to Buffalo, went to Houston, and I run these 2 organizations there. The first one is a think tank, basically, which is the Forum for Dialogue and Diplomacy. And in our executive committee, this is a kind of an academic, political type of think tank that we have in Texas, basically. And some of the members that you may know of, we have 2 former vice chancellors from Pakistan. One is Dr. Javed Ashraf, who was the vice chancellor in Islamabad at Quaid-e-Azam University. And then we have Dr. Ahmed Durrani, who was also the vice chancellor of LUMS at one time. He served as a dean at Rice University previously. And we have Dr. Sarah Sher, who is a Rhodes Scholar. And then we have Dr. Amna Kutub also. She's a biotechnologist. So again, we have a very strong mix and match of scientists and political scientists in our think tank. Our chairperson of the board, of course, is Dr. Barkat Jarania also. So anyway, we come down to the talk today. Obviously, if you look at a slide, it's such a broad subject. When you say game-changing technologies or innovative technologies or groundbreaking technologies, I mean, you could talk about hundreds and hundreds. So obviously, this would be something that is what I would, in my view, what I would find as very game-changing technologies that I believe that would perhaps change how we live over, maybe I would say over the next 5 or maximum 10 years, because technology has a very short life, and we keep on developing new technologies. Today, there may not be technologies on the table which perhaps will be developed over the next 2 years, and maybe in the next 10 years, it would be a completely different scenario. So what we currently have on the table that is currently under research and development, and especially some of those that have already started making a major impact in our life, are typically the technologies that I would focus on in today's talk. The first one, of course, there are going to be no prizes for that. Everybody would know what that is. And that is already starting to make a big difference, and that is what we generally know as AI and artificial intelligence. And the biggest, of course, that you see, which basically is the machine learning, all these terminologies are concurrently used: AI, machine learning, deep learning. So artificial intelligence, as the word indicates, is trying to replicate the human mind and think like a human. And that is also going into more and more advanced stages. But if you look at machine learning, one of the most popular applications that we see now is the ChatGPT, which is the regenerative artificial intelligence, and that is something that learns from itself. So, it goes into a corpus of a lot of database and background information, and when you ask it the right questions, of course, the questions have to be framed correctly, it coughs up an answer within seconds. It has changed, of course, a lot of lives, including mine also. I mean, I usually write a lot of letters of recommendations, and I used to spend like 30 minutes per letter. But now it's so easy, I just give it the key points of the person's profile from the CV, and it generates its own letter of recommendation. But then there is a human touch. But then I read that letter and I go and correct it accordingly, specific to the person that I know. So that I think is already going to make a lot of difference. It already has made a difference. It is not only taking away jobs, but it is also creating new jobs at the same time. And then obviously it just continues on, and these applications are being used in almost every single technology that you could think of, whether it is defense, whether it is health, whether it is academics. It's being used very, very strongly. There was one thing I did not mention in my portfolio also is the American Skills Evaluation Institute. That is a startup that we have just established in Houston, and that is basically focusing on skills to start off with. Because even though I'm a person who is a strong proponent of obviously having degrees and postgraduate degrees and PhDs, but as we move along in the real world, we are finding that now as the half-life is becoming shorter, the skills are becoming more and more important. Because when a person joins an undergraduate program for a 4-year degree, you make up your mind, and by the time you graduate 4 years later, this is something I was telling you, half the scenario has changed. And the things that you have learned in your second year typically are already obsolete by the time you graduate. So now, you're looking at something that is coming up every now and then. So 3 months, 6 months, maximum 9 months to 1 year, skills that you learn are becoming far more important in the developing world than getting a degree, particularly at the bachelor's level. And now all the leading companies, especially the IT companies, whether it's Facebook, Google, Tesla, Apple, they do not even advertise. When they advertise for positions, they do not ask for degrees. They are asking for skills. So it really doesn't matter whether you have a degree. When you submit your CV, and of course, again, an AI-based system is reviewing tens of thousands of applications, finding the right keywords, which again is very important, how you write your CV, because you have to make sure your CV includes all those searchable words that a human is not looking, but an AI-based system is looking and scanning your CV and shortlists you for the next level up. So skills are becoming more and more important, and your CV, especially those who are looking up, moving up the career level, has got to make sure that they have learned and acquired the right skills. So what we do at the American Skills Evaluation Institute is we are also using an AI-based system, because we have collected the corpus of tens of thousands of courses. Let's say there is a course of networking that is offered in maybe 10,000 different institutes around the world. So we have a data of all of that, because everything is available online. And when somebody submits a certificate to us that he or she has done on networking, it immediately goes, it compares to the tier one institutes or academic institutions that offer similar courses. And then it tells you basically where your knowledge or your qualifications stand. It evaluates you and auto generates a certificate within a few seconds that gives you anything from 1 to 5 stars, whether you get 5 stars or 4 or 3. So this is literally the first phase of our development that, and the service, of course, is totally free at the moment. So you go online, you register under skillsevaluation.org, and you get a free American Skills Evaluation Institute certificate. In the phase 2, of course, we will go into an accreditation phase, which is what I was also telling Mukhtar here, that we will be endorsing different institutes around the world, that how, in terms of just like we do an accreditation with the accreditation institutions or the HEC does. So we will be evaluating not just the skills, but the institutes or the organization that is offering these skills. So that would be the phase 2. So that's just an example of how academics is using AI, and that is the American Skills Evaluation Institute. Another very popular thing that is the virtual reality. That is also, exploding at an exponential rate. And there are companies, even in Pakistan, for example, a friend of mine, he has a company that actually creates these goggles that you could do Umrah, and he's also working on developing that you could technically, it won't be in the Hajj, but the whole experience of going through Umrah or Hajj, or going to these religious sites, those who can't afford it would just be able to literally walk through everything that is happening out there. It's finding its applications into a lot of military. Of course, a lot of work is classified. When you go into a real battle scenario, for example, even today, the Israelis and the Mossads are using these type of technologies. They've got the whole terrain of the Gaza Strip, through satellite imaging and obviously through intelligence information. So before they send in their troops on the ground or whatever, they have already practiced what type of difficulty they would be encountering before they roll in their tanks. So, it's finding a lot of these applications particularly in the military application. Healthcare, of course, is something very similar. In particular, now I've also added the metaverse here, which, is we got what used to be Facebook. And that is also going to be a completely immersive experience where you would be combining virtual reality and, this mixed reality along with metaverse. So I'll give you an example of how an academic institution would look like in the future. And most of these universities around the world, even universities like Harvard, may become obsolete. Because let us say you want to offer a course in physics or space physics, let's be more specific, right? And people want to register. So the course would be offered on the metaverse, where let us say Albert Einstein would be teaching that course. So you would have Albert Einstein walking around, and it would be offered on a spaceship, or perhaps it would be offered on Mars, not in a classroom in Harvard. And the students that would be attending would be students from around the world, from any different countries, and they would all be attending at the same time, and they would be, so you would go into a virtual classroom where Einstein is teaching, and that classroom is in a space station, and you have got students from around the world, and you would be interacting with each other, and you would be asking the instructor question. And again, a lot of these things will be AI-based. So just imagine the type of world we are getting into. So think of the movie Star Wars, which itself is like maybe 15 years old. So we are already going into all these phases, and the world is just changing completely left and right. Quantum computing, of course, it has been slow in taking on, but this is going to be the next generation of computing, where you will be combining the particles and the waves together, getting down at the molecular or at the subatomic level. And even if you look at the solid state technology that currently is developed or under development, there's a lot of solid state war, I would say, that is going on between the United States and China at this point in time, where you are going into smaller and smaller chips and faster chips. I believe the standard is now like 7 nanometers, but even 4 nanometer chips have been developed by IBM and a few other companies in Holland. And the target is to push it down to 2 nanometers. So, you are talking about these type of chips that can probably do, I can't name the numbers, maybe trillions and hundreds of trillions of operations per second. So it would be just infinite. And think of when you start using quantum computers for applications of virtual reality, for applications of metaverse, for applications of artificial intelligence, and integrate all these technologies together, you can just imagine, where we will end up to. And I can expect all these things will happen before the year 2030. I do not even know what is going to happen after 2030, but most of these things that I'm talking about will probably mature, and they will be in our hands, and they will be commercially used by people. So it would not just be a military technology or a classified technology or patented technology, because even patents, when you go to the trademark organization, have lives of 3 to 4 years, then it's free for anybody else to be able to use and apply those technologies. So I think it's very important for everybody, especially the science and technology institutions, and especially with organizations like comstech, who's basically focusing on science and technology in the Muslim world, in the OIC, to keep abreast, or they cannot keep abreast, at least follow. If not all of them, at least some of them, because any single one of them is going to be a game changer for any country that, is is not very strongly economically developed, because it makes a big difference. If you look at, only yesterday I was reading, maybe the top 4 or 5 IT companies in the world have a combined value of maybe 80 to 90% of the countries of the world, the poorest countries of the world. So here you're talking about IT companies versus 160 countries, and they are worth more. So one single export, how much is, once again, I don't remember these numbers, the values of Facebooks and Apples and Teslas and Microsoft. I mean, each of them are worth more than any of the developed countries of the world. So just think of capitalizing on one single technology. Tesla, of course, is doing only one single technology. Microsoft does one, Google does one, and yet they are worth so much. So just think of the power of, if you become the world expert in quantum computers, for example, where would you stand? Something again, all of that is going to choke our current bandwidths across. We would not be able to take advantage even with 5G. So 6G is already under development, it's already tested, technically speaking, and I believe in the next 3 to 4 years, a number of countries would already start rolling out 6Gs commercially. Like I said, it's already been developed at the research level, basically going to the next level. And I expect that within 3 years, 6G will be out. And with 6G, you can probably download a whole movie in 3 seconds, as fast as that. So when you're talking again of using all these technologies together, and everybody would have access to broadband, smartphones. I think even in Pakistan, the penetration of smartphones and bandwidth is pretty high. You go to almost even the rural areas, you go to Davas, everybody almost carries even a cheap, inexpensive smartphone. Then the price is like less than 1 month of salary of even an unskilled worker. Even an unskilled worker today, for example, in Karachi makes about 30,000 a month, and you can buy a Chinese-made smartphone for maybe 20,000 rupees, brand new. Used, you can buy probably for 10,000. So I think the big difference, of course, where developing countries particularly can take advantage, and I've always been a proponent of that, is they should make the broadband available free of cost to the population at large. It's usually available to the universities, but the country is not able to prosper from it. But if you make it available, you can see a lot of these small incubators being set up literally in small villages, where where people would learn the skills. People would be sitting literally in dabas, which would be your incubators, and there would be a lot of activity taking place, and people would be working. Only thing that actually limits them is once you use so much of bandwidth, you use so much of data, you start getting warnings on your phone. You've already used up 2G, deposit another 500 rupees, deposit another 1,000 rupees. So I think that is the limitation. This is something really the countries, or especially the OIC countries, should focus on, is to make the bandwidth available either as inexpensive as possible, or possibly, I would say, even free for the next 2 years or so. So you would see a big change in the economies of the strata of the society that doesn't make a lot of money. Any questions so far? I may be going very fast. Again, we keep hearing that, and yes, it is already being, the RFID chips are coming around, they are being used commercially also. There are already stores in the US, it's set up even by Amazon and by a lot of other companies, where you go to a grocery store, there are no checkout counters. You just go and pick up the items that you want, put it in the trolley, and walk out of the store, and everything is automatically charged. So this is something that is a very simple example of the Internet of Things. And there's just a small store. In the future, you will literally find that all these shopping malls and departmental stores, universities, hospitals, everything else would all be everything would be interconnected to each other. But to be able to do that, again, you have to have like 6Gs, for example, not 5G would not be enough. You need bandwidths, you need smartphones, you need solid state devices. You need inexpensive solid state devices where each, RFID would cost maybe even less than a cent to manufacture and install in every single device that you would find on the shelf, on the stores, and everything else. So Internet of Things, we have been hearing about it, of course, but we have not seen its practical application so far, except in a few developed countries and except in a few isolated pockets. So it has to pick up, but again, I presume maybe in the next less than 5 years, this will become much more widespread. And, for example, in academic institutions, you can have every student who carry a device. So that would become something like for attendance, you're logging in and logging out. You don't have to log in and log out. For every single employee in an organization, this would keep track of when the working hours the person is spending on it. So it's not just for device, it could also be for humans in factories, for example. So that would also help everyone to increase the productivity of items once this thing becomes much more common. Now, if you look at the whole scenario, the biggest threat that we are facing right now is the hacking, the penetration. Cybersecurity becomes even more and more important. And this technically is also just like AI, it has become one of the most sought after areas. If you are an expert in cybersecurity today, your starting job offers are at least $100,000 plus, even in the Middle East countries. But you do not find these experts because everything today literally can be hacked. So it's not that you are a hacker, but you also want to prevent your systems. And since tomorrow everything is going to be connected, it already is in the developed world, 90% things are already connected online, whether these are power lines, gas regulators, nuclear power stations, defense systems, Pentagon, CIA, banks, financial institutions, stock market. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Here, for example, your NADRA database. So just imagine if anybody is able to hack into the NADRA database, they would have complete information to everything you do, including how much money you make, your taxes. So these things are becoming more and more important. And currently, yes, I would say everything can be hacked today. I mean, even the Pentagon's computers are being hacked. Okay. When there were attacks, for example, in Iran a few years back on their nuclear reactors, again, those were cyber attacks. So there is not enough that actually is being done, and maybe your institute there can literally focus on these aspects. Very important. Robotics, of course, you see a lot of movies now of RoboCops, robots driving, robots talking to you. Whatever the female robot's name is, who's always talking. She also became the first, I would say, Saudi citizen. So, pardon? So, yeah, yes, it's correct. So, a lot of things. So, it's not fiction anymore. It is real. And Boston Dynamics, of course, is doing a lot of work in the United States. It's one of the leading companies. But it's not exactly today as we see it in the movies. Okay, so a robot is still a robot. Development is still taking place. Okay, they're still acting like fools. Of course, you have to use a lot of artificial intelligence to have them, or machine learning to have them think like humans and act like humans. That is very important. But just imagine, if you look at the military application of robots, you will not need any standing armies anymore. So good, we can get rid of the establishment. But then the robots will take over. So, so the country's defense, there would be no armies, there could be no navies, there could be no air force. So everything is going to be automated, which you say robot, but basically it means that there's going to be nobody sitting out there. Everything is automated and controlled. Today, even the F-35s, for example, have been tested using AIs, using robotic technology. And I read a report somewhere else that one of the best fighter pilots in the United States who flies an F-35 actually went into a dogfight, an artificial dogfight with a robotic F-35, and the robotic F-35 won. Okay. So this is the type of things that, the developed countries in particularly are working on, because there is going to be no more collateral damage. And that is the reason now drones, you have already noticed, are being used in military application, because drones technically are called flying robots. That's what they are. You had a question?
Yes, you were saying you can ask the question. I was just wondering that we are looking at the benefits of these technologies, but sometimes they can be very dangerous if there's some companies, some governments, some countries working on the rules and regulation, how to regulate these technologies.
Yeah.
Have the control of them.
Right, always. I mean, every technology that has a benefit or an advantage will have a disadvantage. It's always there. In my field, look at electrical engineering, you look at electricity, look at all the benefits of electricity. But do you think electricity is safe? Go and touch it. You use electric chairs to kill people, right? You use electrical powered tanks now. Or even the drones, for example, have electrical power. So it's not just the drones, but the technology itself can be used in any different way that you can think of, positively or negatively.
And
Yeah, a gun, forget the gun, a knife. You're using a knife to cut a cake, right? Or in the kitchen. But a knife is one of the most popular killing weapon today, especially in all the third world and developing countries.
Sir, it will replace the human works and jobs, sir, what will be about that?
Pardon, sorry?
Sir, it will replace the human works and jobs, sir, that is the.
Yeah, those are the drawbacks. Of course, that is why even in artificial intelligence, there have been a lot of meetings that, even in the United States Congress and so on, because they are afraid that if AI takes over, then the humans will become obsolete in a sense, right? So yes, there has to be regulation, but everything cannot be over-regulated. I am against over-regulation in every respect. There has got to be a freedom of thought, expression, freedom to develop, but not negatively. So yes, there has got to be a control. Same thing is with your cars. You can use cars to your advantage, and you can use cars, you can have an accident and people can die. What do you say, the driverless Teslas also, are becoming very popular. Now there are driverless cabs, even in Texas, in Austin. You can have a driverless cab just by using your smartphone. It would just like your Kareem or Uber comes in, the cab would come and you would sit in, and then it would take you to your destination and you would pay and walk out. But then just think of it, that if it goes rogue, what happens, right? It could kill you, or it could kill a pedestrian. Or would it have the intelligence to make a decision? If a car is going and a small child immediately crosses a road and the car is on a bridge and there are two passengers sitting in the back, the AI has to make a decision whether to kill the child or throw the car off the bridge, right? So these are type of things that, of course, are all under consideration by even the social scientists, not necessarily the scientists. These are some factors that have to be looked into. Well, I just added that, not my area of expertise, but obviously blockchain, these things are coming, and more importantly, you're looking into especially decentralized finance and smart contracts. A lot of these things are actually happening. We also actually tried in one of our startups, this basically the blockchain, because when we were looking into the skills evaluation, so we were kind of ensuring that, there is no duplication of people who are getting these degrees and certificates, because, this way you can make your secure transactions as well. But like I said, these are things that have developed particularly in the financial world of cryptocurrencies, the Bitcoins, and it continues to grow, but not at the speed that one would expect. But then if I'm looking at a cutoff time of 2030, maybe a lot of these actual currencies of dollars and yens and everything else would maybe can say disappear, and people will just be doing transactions using Bitcoins or any other type of cryptocurrencies that are popular or would become popular in the future. Materials, of course, an extremely important area. People do not give it a lot of importance, but if you just think of nanotechnology, all right? Nanotechnology has already started making a difference in a lot of things, and it is continuing to make a difference. And yet, a lot of R&D is taking place. In my field, for example, in electrical engineering, especially in power, we have always talked about superconducting materials, for example, to carry electrical power, because we use almost 20% of your electrical power in the copper lines. So ideally, you want to have superconducting materials where resistance is zero and there is no loss. Has not happened. Of course, we bring temperatures down to, liquid helium, hydrogen temperatures, and it makes a difference. The idea was to bring it down to liquid nitrogen temperature, which also has succeeded, but bring it down to room temperature. And that is where, even for the last 20 years, there is a lot of research that has been going on to develop nanomaterials where you can have superconductivity at room temperature. So that's just an example. It's finding a lot of applications. Even I mentioned their energy storage, which is my area of research. The idea is, and whether these are the smartphones or batteries, that is energy storage. Now you're talking of renewable energies, which is solar and wind, and you are putting up larger batteries there, maybe that can run the whole country, or even in electric vehicles. And the major weight of an electric vehicle today, even though the body may be made of fiberglass or aluminum, is the batteries itself, whether these are lithium batteries or lead batteries. So energy storage, nanotechnology is finding a lot of application. And in ordinary things, just think of the paint, to have your houses insulated, you spend a lot of money in the Western world to insulate your ceiling and everything so that the heat is trapped in. And similarly, in hot countries, the coal is trapped in. Okay, so just the paints are starting now already coming out, which are using these nanoparticles for insulation. So just having your walls painted is going to save a lot of your electricity bills, particularly when you are paying 60 rupees a unit. I don't know how much you pay in Islamabad. In Karachi, you pay 60 rupees a unit for electricity, which probably is, I would say, is amongst the highest in the world. So that's one example. And then the metamaterials are, again, development of materials that have got specific properties which are not even found in nature. Okay. Let's say you want to make a material invisible. Everybody, most of you must have read Harry Potter, the invisibility cloak, right? I mean, that would be an ideal scenario. Imagine a drone that is invisible. Not invisible to the radar, but even invisible to the naked eye. Drones are invisible to the radar, by the way, okay? Yeah. So invisible to the naked eye. So I'm just giving an example of a drone. I'm sorry, a lot of these examples that I give are all about military applications, because all my past research has, and including today, some of it deals with a lot of military research. So, or even the missiles, imagine having a missile come in and you don't even know what hit you, or an invisible thing, think of it, okay? So these things are already under development as metamaterials. And then the smart materials, you already know, would change their properties depending on what is the input that is provided to it. And some of these are already there, the clothes you wear, for example, when you go in the sunlight, it would change color. You go in the dark, it would change color, as an example. Even that could happen for your cars. You could have a red car that you're driving in the day, or a green car that you're driving in the night, and a yellow car that you're driving at a different time. Or when it rains, it changes color. So that's just an example of a color. So a lot of these things are going to be very exotic as if the properties will keep on changing depending upon what is the condition that is being, external condition that is being imparted to. Biotechnology, again, Dr. Atar Rahman is an expert, so I won't speak much on it. But CRISPR, yes, is already starting to make a difference and it's real. DNA, playing around with DNA. Some of us say that we are playing with God, we are becoming God ourselves. You can have already, babies that are being born with blue eyes, that is happening. Or of course, the plus side, of course, is that you can control cancer, you can control a lot of these genetic diseases that you have inherited from those parents. So you would not be transmitting them to your children, to your next of kin. So a lot of these are, of course, the positive aspects. Then, of course, there are the negative aspects also that, you could create monsters, you could create different things. You just have to watch these Mission Impossible and James Bond movies to figure out, what different things CRISPR and this biotechnology and DNA technologies can do just by editing the DNA. So you could, again, like you said, there could be the plus side of it and there could be a negative side of it. And a lot of this, of course, even today, a lot of this research is also classified. And when I say classified, again, it means it's military related. So a lot of these things, of course, are happening. So for example, if I were able to identify that if I can get, I'm just using an arbitrary name for now. Let's say Osama bin Laden was alive and I got his DNA, but I don't know his age, his identity sitting in this room. I could throw a bomb here that is only going to kill the person with that DNA. So the bomb explodes, nothing will happen to the rest of you, and only one person will die. Okay. So, and I think it was already a theme of the James Bond movie maybe 5 years back. Finally, I watched movies, so. Okay, telemedicine, I don't think I should speak much about it, but it's becoming real, remote monitoring, remote diagnostics, that's already happening, and it's going to help a lot, in cities, people have access, but think of the rural areas, think of Africa, think of a lot of underdeveloped countries. And then technologies are developing fast. There is one that I'm currently involved with that is being developed in Moscow at the moment. And that is also AI based again. And that is a remote diagnostics of women, of early diagnostics of women who have breast cancer. Okay. So this is a infrared based thermometer, which is non-invasive, and it detects the different temperatures on a woman's breast at different, depths, maybe a 0.1 millimeter variation, takes the data remotely to a cloud into a main server where AI would basically detect, create an image, and tell you at what stage of cancer a woman is. So it's currently being developed for breast cancer, but eventually it will go down and expand into other fields. And this is something that we hope that we would also perhaps be introducing in Pakistan, maybe within the next 3 months, as amongst the first countries after it gets the certification from Russia. So that possibly would come, but all the remote analysis would all be done in Moscow, or perhaps we would have a server that would be placed in a different country like Switzerland, for example, because if it is placed in Moscow, then a lot of Western countries would, because of the sanctions of the Ukraine war, they would not be buying or using such devices. So that's just one thing that I would mention here. Energy, of course, you all know solar, wind, as an example, becoming more and more popular, whether it is real, it will happen, will we actually be able to change all our burning technologies, fossil fuel, into, well, hydro was already there, then into wind and solar. There are two schools of thought, let me tell you, people who still propagate fossil think, well, you cannot get out of it, it's not possible. I mean, you're talking of the 7 billion population of the earth today. It would become 10 billion in maybe the next 5-7 years. You're adding 3 more billion people. How could just wind and energy creating how many, hundreds of square miles of solar farms everywhere in every country would just not be possible. So there is a school of thought that says that, so one will have to continue with fossil fuel, which is oil, gas, particularly the focus is moving away from oil, more into natural gas, including clean hydrogen as an example. and nuclear, because
We
nuclear will
are
also
shifting to
consider.
nuclear. basically.
Yeah, so which is actually the next slide. I hope it is the next slide. Yes, this is the latest technology in nuclear, which is the micro and small modular reactors. And so it's not 100 megawatt nuclear powerhouse, but these are smaller modular units. So let us say you have a housing society here and there is no electrical power that a country utility can give. You can set up your own small micro nuclear reactor there and provide power to the facility, or even coming down to a micro level to a particular factory, whether it's a steel mill, it's a cement factory, just like you set up a small powerhouse here. So this, by the way, technology is already being developed and it is commercially available at the moment. I think it just came online about 6 months back. At least I know in the US. We were already working on it, by the way, 30 years back. It was in a stage of research, not even development, where in space, when we were talking about putting different things in space, let us say like directed energy weapons. At that time, the highest power you could think of in a space system was maybe 100 watts only for a satellite. A satellite would only use 100 watts. Now imagine you want to put 100 kilowatts of power. It would not be possible. So they were already working on creating these micro nuclear reactors, and the program was called SP100 in the early 1990s, 2000, where the idea was to put a nuclear reactor in space. So yes, it was not put in space, but the technology developed to such an extent that now it is possible to put these micro reactors right on ground-based systems, and that is already happening. Energy storage, when you're talking about all these things, particularly the previous one where you're talking renewables, and like I previously mentioned, whether these are cell phones, these are electric vehicles, these are powerhouses. You're talking about many different devices, whether these are batteries, these are capacitors, these are inductors, there are solid state batteries, there are lithium batteries. Now they're also working on sodium batteries as an example, which they think lithium is, a very rare material. It only comes from Australia, it comes from South America, maybe it comes from Hamza. Nothing would know that from some KP provinces in Afghanistan. And that is why you get into the geopolitics of, just like you have the Middle East wars, so you might end up getting more wars here. So, but now they say that even maybe sodium is an alternate to lithium as an example, which I think will be a breakthrough if that actually happens. The research is going on there. And then hydrogen, of course, storage devices. Initially, the fuel cells that were used in the space station and the shuttle, of course, were all fuel cells, and they were also used in automobiles. And fuel cells is something that basically uses the hydrogen technology. The output is just water vapor, clean water. So a lot of work actually, even today, we are talking about green hydrogen, which is using windmills out in the ocean that does the electrolysis. That breaks the seawater into hydrogen and oxygen. You take the hydrogen, you combine it, it becomes ammonia. And that is how you transport the hydrogen, you break it out again. So that is an alternate technology that is going to obviously the existing lithiums and solid state storage devices, as well as a lot of these fossil fuel and the natural gas used for power generation. And even by the way, Middle East and Gulf countries, even Mubadala in United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, are investing a lot on this green hydrogen as well. And I believe even Pakistan possibly is looking into that. I see Anwar sitting there, so he would be able to throw some light.
Yeah, it's recently it has been introduced as an universal source of energy, the green hydrogen, using ARE policy 2019. Okay, before that, it was not included as a source of.
So just in 2019, it's been introduced as a policy.
Yeah.
That's good. At least we are getting into the right track. You should keep aware of these things because this is cheap. You just use water and nothing else. And if you're able to combine your solar, we have a lot of sun, and you're able to use wind. You have a lot of these coastal belts. You can get abundance of hydrogen. You don't have to worry about coal. You don't have to worry about oil or importing expensive, LNG from wherever. Drones, of course, I think I skip it because I already mentioned about that for the autonomous, the robotics, because drone basically is, like I said, it's a flying robot, nothing else. That's what it is. It's just shaped like a plane. That's what it is, and it uses a DI-based system. It's also pilotless. And as you see, all the wars of the worlds are now kind of shifting towards, instead of buying expensive planes like F-35s and F-16s, JF Thunders, focus on basically drones. So even the human and lives are minimized. Hypersonic vehicles are weapons, of course, like the missiles are already being used. They were used for the first time in the Ukraine war by the Russians. So something that have already been developed, something that flies very low, uses artificial intelligence, zigzags its way around, is not detected, and very effective. So I won't say much about that. And this basically is my area of research that I worked for almost 20 years and has now actually been developed. It was at an R&D stage at that time, and that is using the laser beams, the particle beams, which is the directed energy, and then the kinetic energy, which are like the rail guns. And some of that actually today, the rail gun is actually currently being used in aircraft carriers in the United States. They have huge rail guns that are mounted. Those of you who, before you were born, there was a famous movie called The Guns of Navarone. I don't know, you might have seen it last year, right? So that was not the rail gun, but think of a rail gun as something like that. And your normal chemical projectile travels at a speed of less than 1 kilometer per second, but an electromagnetic projectile will travel at 10 times faster speed, and it would go 10 times longer distance. And as you know, the momentum is the square of the velocity, which is mass times velocity square. So its impact would be 100 times more. So even a small projectile of maybe 1 kilogram, if it was to travel at a speed of 10 kilometers per second, that's it. No explosive. It would just pass through 10 inches of stainless steel. Okay. And I'll give you a real example that I have observed, and this is, I take you back to the year 2000 or 2002, where we had actually tested projectiles that were made of polypropylene, 10 grams of polypropylene, fired using a rail gun. We did that experiment in California, and it penetrated through 1 inch stainless steel. So 10 grams of polypropylene penetrated through 1 inch of stainless steel, fired from an experimental rail gun that was set up at Maxwell Laboratories in San Diego, California. And we were actually making the energy storage devices for that rail gun. So that these things have already been developed. And now when you look at even the Gaza war, that the Israelis used what was known as, what was it called? The dome? Sky dome. Iron dome. Iron dome, yeah. So Iron Dome is not electroplate, but the Sky Dome concept basically uses most of these technologies, which are electrical and electronic technologies, for defensive purposes. So it can shoot down any incoming missile. So even if it is using an AI-based system, a laser would blow off its electronics, and then it would just fall wherever it is instead of being directed, or a kinetic energy would blow that missile off 60 miles away before even it reaches its destination. I think so. That's basically enough for now. I think we have enough food for thought. Nothing more to add. If you have any questions, we can answer that. I'm sorry it became longer than what I expected. Went into 55 minutes. Yes, please.
So I think this is the right platform to ask you this question, because you have already worked in technology and you have already worked in education reforms.
Correct.
As an academician in technology university, I have this question that technology is moving forward by leaps and bounds, while we are still crawling in our education.
Pakistan or we as in world?
Pakistan, I would say. I'm here, so I would talk about my country. Like, even if I know that there is blockchain, even if I know that there is AI technology, which is beyond my imagination, I cannot inculcate that in my curriculum because my hands are tied for accreditation purposes. My curriculum is given to me in a hardbound copy, and I have to follow that. And my students have to have that for the skill verification program. So I know that I'm doomed. I know that I'm doing for the children. What do we do? Help us.
I will let Dr. Nasir answer this question because he was a senior member at Higher Education Commission, dealt with all these accreditation issues. And then he runs in a very important university, still based in Haripur. So let him answer that question for you. I can.
I was going to ask,
The same question?
now the issue is this, like. We talk about, let me answer it in a.
Yeah, face the crowd, come out
Yes.
here, please, so they can listen.
Thank you, sir. We talk about cryptocurrency. How many people have an account? I'm not going to reveal anyone.
Okay, continue. I continue.
Anyone dealing in crypto? But they have crypto accounts. Though it is illegal. Coming to what you were saying. And they make a cool $100 a day. Doing nothing. Just this device. On each transaction, they make $10-15. And if they do 7-8 transactions, they make $100, and that's it, arts calligraphy. Multiply that by 30. Is it happening? Pakistan is the 4th fastest growing gig economy in the world. Freelancing. Who gives them that technology? The technology is already there. But in academia, like you said, we are so conservative. And the accreditation bodies are outdated in that sense. That they cannot keep up with what the students want. They have a choice. So they're dropping out. I sometimes go late at night to the hospital. And I can tell you, there are quite a few lights that are on. Sub-freelancing. 2017, Mr. Official figures, estimates that were put together, $1 billion came through the gig economy, to freelancers. 17
In Pakistan.
in Pakistan.
Yes.
Our total software exports are about 2.7, 2.8 billion. But I can bet the gig economy is generating more than $5 billion now, right now. Why not regulate? It's happening. And the crypto money is untraceable. It's flowing. It's coming to Pakistan. It's coming to my house. So the important part here is answering your question is that how do we push policymakers? How do we push policymakers into regular? It has to be regulated. This too has to be regulated.
Yeah.
But it's happening anyway. But if it is regulated, at least there will be some semblance of growth that is taking place over a period of time. So my view, sir, on this is that institutions, and we are also to be blamed as institutional leaders. I tell you that also. We don't know what the student wants. We don't want to know what the student wants. The student knows what he wants or she wants. And yes, they're trying to be smart. Or, we know and they don't know. Because we've been here because we have these degrees. No more. We run a small skills program. And it's a 4-month program. यकीन करो पिछले semester में 2 PhDs आए हैं. And this is essentially meant for metric and FSC level. Why? Because they couldn't get a job. So one of the star students, after 4 months, he started his own freelancing company. He's married and he has a mother at home. So you can imagine the picture that goes on. His business expanded, so he employed his wife. She was also getting $150.
And the
a month.
platforms are already there, like Fiverr, right?
Yes, they're already there.
Everything is ready for you.
Everything is
And like
ready.
I said, if you have free internet or cheap internet access and you're working in a dhaba, believe me, a dhaba can be an incubator. You don't need bricks and mortar buildings. 4 people sitting around a bench on their smartphones like he showed you. As long as you have got connectivity,
That is the
you
issue.
have taken on the board.
Connectivity.
Get your skills right.
Bandwidth issue.
Get your skills right.
He hired his one. So now he was left with the third one, his mother. So he hired his mother also. Now all three work at home. And they make $500+ a month. From zero, nothing. It's not regulated. Technically, it is illegal. If you are caught, it's a criminal activity. So आप कह रही हैं
It's criminal because they are using Bitcoin, right?
yes,
Because they are using Bitcoin.
Because they-
But if they use dollars, it's not illegal.
but when you convert it, because they get the money in dollars here and convert it into rupees. So, yes, we leapfrog those, sir, to keh rahe the quantum computing. How many of our universities, you are all from university, guys. How many do you have a faculty that has a background in quantum computing? Zero. We are looking for one. We found one.
And he would not be willing to stay here after 6 months.
Well, he can't go now because he's my age and he can't run away from here. But he's the only one. Quantum computing में expertise अगर कहीं है किसी के पास किसी को जानते हो please let me know. We'll hire him immediately and pay him very well also, he or she. नहीं. So the institutions itself, sorry, are very concerned, very slow to change.
Same, I gave an example of cybersecurity. You don't have experts. You can work remotely out here for all these big corporations sitting in the US and Europe and make a lot of money.
But at the same time, you can do it yourself also. Set up your own company. I'll give you some story. Sure. I was a student, second semester में, undergrad, and please Google it. Second semester में AI का student, Saad Siddiqui. He established an SCCP registered company. FSC करने के बाद कितने साल का होगा 20 साल का होगा 21 साल का होगा 19 साल का होगा.
Yes.
After a year, a Karachi based company came to him and they wanted to buy his company for $100,000. The company is called Adversity. Please Google it. EDVERSITY.
I've heard of that.
Yes. Because you was with me yesterday, we spent 2 hours together. He's the son of a school teacher from Jeddah. अम्मा को पैसे चाहिए नहीं चाहिए तुझे पैसे चाहिए नहीं चाहिए don't sell it. That company is now $8 million. He's in Samsung. Do it yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. Register your own company. Nobody stops you from registering your own company. And plus, he was hired by the Garage, which is one of the largest accelerators in Riyadh. Out of 300 people that were shortlisted, 30 were taken. Saad Siddiqui was one of them. And yesterday he came and he said, sir, good news for me, because I follow him also and I support him a lot. He said, sir, मुझे $500,000 की grant MBS में होती. That's the future.
Actually, these are success stories, so don't think this is the general form. If there are, one success, there could be 99 failures. So keep that in mind. So you have to keep trying. हम लोगों ने भी अपनी startup, let me tell you, since I left United Arab Emirates and went to Houston in the last 5 years, we must have tried 20 different startups. Me, myself, personally, that is why I got all these areas in my mind. But then 1 or 2 of them out of those 100 triggered.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not that you will do something, you have a great idea, it will work. No, you have to keep, like Edison said. Edison ne kya bola tha? How many times he failed till he got the light bulb going. It's like that. Yes, sir.
मुझे डॉक्टर अब्दुल रशीद कहते हैं, मैं भी यूनिवर्सिटी टीचर रहा हूँ। तो आपके जो इंटरनेशनल एक्सपीरियंस है या नेशनल लेवल का, खासकर एचईसी का जो एक्सपीरियंस है, पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त तक कोई दवाई मार्केट में नहीं आई जो कि जहाँ साइंटिस्ट ने जो किसी साइंटिस्ट ने किसी एकेडमी ने कोई किसी भी सोर्स से आई हो, मार्केट में नहीं है।
ये सवाल आपको डॉक्टर तावर रहमान से पूछना चाहिए।
मेरे मुझे आपकी ओपिनियन चाहिए कि प्रोफेसर मुख्तार साहब स्किल डेवलपमेंट के एकेडमिया के प्रोफेसर्स को ट्रेन करें ताकि उनके ज़हन में है कि चाहे नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी इस्तेमाल करें, सिंथेटिक करें, लैब में करें, कोई टेक्नोलॉजी इस्तेमाल करें या नेचुरल सोर्स से करें। एपिलेप्सी का उन्होंने बनाया हुआ है
जो शानदार is available around the world, same by the
वो कर सकते हैं, लेकिन अपने प्रोफेसर्स को अपने एकेडमिया को ट्रेन करना चाहिए कि किस रास्ते पे चलें ताकि
ये डॉक्टर साहब दिस इज मैंने डॉक्टर अता से वी वर ऑन द टीवी चैनल एंड आई आस्क्ड द सेम क्वेश्चन टू हिम कि मैंने कहा डॉक्टर साहब व्हाई नो मेडिसिन इज कमिंग फ्रॉम हियर आइदर जेनेरिक और सम ट्रेड मेडिसिन He said, you know, I mean, I want to do it, but the private sector is stopping me. It's on the open TV channel that he mentioned over there. So there are a lot more hindrances. And I think we have to, I mean, the things lie on our side. Basically, we are unable to convince the people, those who are leading us, इसका benefit हो सकता है. मैं सर ने बड़ी अच्छी जो है ना information दी, but I share with you in 1999 I was in Arizona. I met with a scientist who was working on one of the most poisonous lizard. I mean that looks very ugly because in Arizona the lizards are, I mean, different. He was working on the saliva of that lizard. I met with him like a typical fact मैंने कहा यार ये तो बिल्कुल पागल है, ये जो ना lizard के saliva पर काम कर रहा है. Guess what? अभी जो 2023 का मॉलिक्यूल ऑफ द ईयर है ना, उस लिजर्ड का जो वेनम है ना, उससे नॉट ओनली टाइप 2 डायबिटीज दुनिया में कंट्रोल हो रही है, बल्कि अब ओबेसिटी भी दैट विल गेट कंट्रोल विद दैट मेडिसिन। द मेन थिंग इज वी हैव टू टेक रिस्क, वी हैव टू एक्सप्लोर। इधर हमारे साइंटिस्ट भी जो है ना, बिकॉज आई एम ए साइंटिस्ट, आपको डॉक्टर अता भी साइंटिस्ट हैं, उन पे कितने ज्यादा आप भी सुनते रहते हैं जो है ना प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं, इश्यूज होते हैं, but not any scientist in the developed world gets such type of problems. So I think we have to make the things better. अभी आपके जो शानदार जो है ना, उसके लिए तो FDA ने कह दिया था कि इसको सबमिट करो, हम अप्रूव करते हैं, लेकिन हमने नहीं सबमिट किया। कच्ची वाले कहते हैं हमें इतना पैसा मिल जाता है, हम क्यों जाएं उस साइट पर। So I think we have to work on the system. Keep it.
Sir, medicines की यहाँ पर बात हो रही है, so I want to share. I'm also working. I'm a chemist basically. I'm working on medicinal chemistry और 2020 में एक Alzheimer disease पे basically मैं काम कर रही हूँ और molecule design किया, that was a flow drug and that was published in a very good journal, and I submitted the same molecule to different functionalities for NRP, HEC, and they rejected it in 2 lines. There are many medicines already available in this field, so it is useless. So what do you say about this?
Then we have talent, someday will come. You know, Pakistani scientists, let me assure you, they are best of the best. I mean, I always think about myself. I wish I have so much money I can give to them. And Lagari Saab is here, Murtaza Noor is sitting over here. We try to establish a consortium, inter-university consortium for the promotion of social sciences. होता क्या था, पहले वाइस चांसलर पॉलिटिक्स करते थे, हमने लगारी साहब को भी बताया उनको कि भाई पॉलिटिक्स ना करें, लेट्स हेल्प ईच अदर। द आइडिया वाज कि एक प्रोफेसर एक यूनिवर्सिटी का नहीं होगा, पूरे पाकिस्तान की यूनिवर्सिटी में उसकी इक्वल वर्थ होगी। अनफॉर्चुनेटली कुछ अर्सा तक चलता रहा, उसके बाद जो है ना हमें प्रॉब्लम्स आ गए, इश्यूज आ गए, बट ही स्टिल वर्क ऑन दैट वन। सो आई थिंक कोलैबोरेशन, कोऑपरेशन, रेस्पेक्ट फॉर अदर और जो ट्रस्ट है ना, सबसे बड़ी बात है कि वंस वी स्टार्ट ट्रस्टिंग ईच अदर द लाइफ विल मूव्स। सर अमेरिका में हैं, because I lived over there for 20 years. Nobody can say I am American. Everybody is American. जो भी उस लैंड में चला गया is American. There is no difference, and they work jointly, and you never feel discrimination. I was part of the biodefense. Sir ने भी माशाल्लाह ये आपने जो सारे के सारे आपने देखे जो है ना, he worked on defense projects. आप मुझे इधर बताएं कि पाकिस्तान में हम किसी को बाहर से कोई give me a single example, even Muslim country से किसी को अपने डिफेंस हमने में लेके आए. तो हमारी बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं जिनको हमने सोशल लेवल पर, मॉरल लेवल पर, एथिकल लेवल पर we have to overcome these. Thank you.
Let me give two comments. एक में defense related दे देता हूँ और बाद में medicine कर देता हूँ. I think the year was 1993. Okay. I was contacted by Dr. Abdul Kadir Khan. And I was at the State University of New York as a professor and काफी मेरी publications relating to these directed energy weapons. जो open public domain में थी, they were published. So he requested me to come to Pakistan. He took me to meet President Ghulam Isa Khan. And he said, to see Sal 1993, when this was, I think, the month was March or February. In October, the GIK Institute was opening, was the formal opening thing. And then he even took me to the site under construction. I think everything, Dr. Saab, we want to start this research here. So Dr. Kadir Khan had a vision, let me tell you, okay? So I said, "Bilkul karo, whatever I can do that is allowed, I would help you with that, okay? But then, you know, GIK Institute itself went into a lot of ups and downs. Probably such type of research was never initiated here. But imagine if 1993, we would have been the pioneers in around the world, other than US doing काम initiate करता. वो बात दूसरी है जिसके 6 महीने बाद FBI मेरे पास आ गई थी पूछने के लिए कि तुम क्या कर रहे थे पाकिस्तान में. So that's better. Now a comment on the medicine. You know, COVID ने कितना scare world में create किया था, and even the US government and I believe the Europeans, they financed tens of billions of dollars towards supporting research for vaccine of COVID. जिसमें ये Pfizer और दो तीन companies and Pfizer maybe, as you know, these were two Turkish scientists who were based in Germany, who were amongst the first ones that actually created a vaccine for COVID-19. But all these vaccines were going around, and then there was an issue that maybe these vaccines are not halal vaccines. You know, people put issues of, and there are, of course, we have 42 Muslim countries. Now, OIC or comstech would have been an agency, an organization that should have initiated this program. Okay, well, how can we also do research? And maybe they could have got financing and funding from some Muslim countries to start that research. किसने शुरू किया? A Canadian company based in Montreal. I've forgotten the name, but I was in touch with them. They had started and they had succeeded creating COVID-19. So that was, I think, the third or fourth vaccine that came. They created this COVID vaccine from where? Guess. Tobacco plant. Tobacco leaf जो आपके frontier में होता है, बहुत ज़्यादा. Okay. They created a COVID-19 vaccine and which is now currently available. And they are now marketing it out to all the Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, whatever. We were actually we were talking with that company and we said, okay, when we want to invest in that, when I say we, one of my friends was an investor and he's also from KP, by the way, small partners come from KP. We said, we are willing to, if you give us the permission and the license, we will manufacture this vaccine in Turkey and we will distribute it to the Muslim world. So we were already at that stage, but then COVID completely went down. You know, it was control. And even the investors, of course, was not very much interested in investing a lot of money setting up a plant in Turkey. But this was again an opportunity where Muslim countries should have taken the lead, created a supposedly a halal vaccine. And then you're looking at a profile of almost 2 billion people around the world that would have used it. So there is also a reply. Both the opportunity to see. Okay. Any question? Maybe last question, and then we end was already about 15 minutes. Any last? Yes.
My question is that these are all very interesting, you know, the game changing technology also, of course. But my concern is this cyber security. How much do you feel that there could be the way we are going ahead with all these new developments, that there will be a big bang going to disrupt everything?
It can anytime. Anytime. as long as our systems are connected to the internet, anything can be disrupted, kept track of. जब Iraq war हुआ था, तो Saddam Hussein was actually sending messages on WhatsApp, not on phone, cell phone, or carriers. So yes, there is always a way around it, which is going back to the old-fashioned hard copy, paper pay, and physically taking things over. There is nothing online, but as long as anything is connected online, you just remember that. आपका standalone computer है, as long as it is not connected to the internet, you are safe. But आपकी जेब में जो मोबाइल फोन है, वो इस वक्त हमारी सारी बातें सुन रहा है, और उसका AI बेस्ड सिस्टम कीवर्ड्स ट्रैक कर रहा है, और जो मैंने अपनी टॉप में जो डिफेंस और डायरेक्टेड एनर्जी वेपन्स किए हैं, वो भी ट्रैक हो गए, वो मेरा बैकग्राउंड भी अगले 30 सेकंड्स में चेक हो जाएगा, and they will say it's just an academic talk. So all these things are happening.
So anytime Big Bang. You say anytime Big Bang.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for coming, for spending your time with me. I hope this was informative, interactive. I wanted to make it interactive also. So thank you again. Thank you, Murtaza.
Thank you, sir, once more for such an exciting lecture. I would like to request Mr. Murtaza to present a shield to our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Murtaza is a gentleman who actually should be presented shields everywhere. Thank you.
Back to Professor Mukhtar.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Also, so proud of your friendship. So our mentor is here. So लगारी साहब के एक जो ब्लेसिंग, क्योंकि वी आर कंटेम्परेरी, मैं वाइस चांसलर था, जो भी हम आइडिया लेके आए ना, क्योंकि अच्छी बात ये थी, ऑफ कोर्स नासिर खान वाज देयर, अपना सुहेल नकवी वाज देयर, यू आर डू इट, इफ इट इज गुड जस्ट गो अहेड. I mean, इन्होंने mention भी किया, that was a time of trials and tribulations also. In spite of that, HEC अगर आज exist करती है, the credit go to लगारी साहब के उसके उन हालात में से निकल का.
Well, it was not me. Let me tell you, I had the best team, honestly speaking, with Dr. Suhail Naqvi, Dr. Nasir, Murtaza. I think they were all warriors and fighters. Let me tell you that. So HEC वाकई सही बोल रहे हैं. HEC खत्म हो गई होती, there would have been no HEC. I'm sure all of you must have had bad experiences also with HEC, for which yes, we are responsible in terms of काफी लोगों को attestation से related बड़ी difficulties होती थी. That is true. But then a lot of good things, more good things came out of HEC than the bad things. And everything, every organization has its goods and bads. But we would have evolved and we could have become even better with time. But anyway, the new leadership or जो आगे future leadership will be, I'm sure they will be able to carry the flag forward.